All right, folks, welcome back to Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape. We have episode number 65 today. Are we alone in the universe
Hello.
with our new buddy Matt Tiller?
Hey,
You can check us out at Mike and Maurice mindescape.com. Also check us out at patreon.com/Mike and Maurice. Without further ado, Matt Tiller, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
No problem. It's a pleasure. We haven't done a good alien or extraterrestrial life one in a while, so I thought it would be. I saw what you're doing. I like your videos on your
Thanks.
Tiller for Realer channel. Everybody check that out. I'll put the link in the bio. But why don't you give us a little bit of background, like how you got into this, kind of what you're doing with it, if you have like a path you're headed down, the book or movie or just something along those lines.
Sure. I think like most people who get involved into in this topic or subject matter, the interest started when I was a kid. I remember going to the public library with my dad, wandering along the aisles, and I found this section about ghosts and haunted houses. And right beside that, you've got books about Bigfoot and books about aliens and UFOs. And just in reading all of these books, I eventually got to the extraterrestrial alien type of books, and it totally sparked my curiosities. That was the first thing. The second thing was the TV show Unsolved Mysteries, hosted by Robert Stack, who has like such just a gripping voice,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yes.
he could. That man, I swear, he could read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," and you would be like almost in tears with fear.
Yeah, you'd be scared of Christmas from that point on.
You have like the most chilling story ever. But it was an interest for a long time. But the defining point for me, I think, was the New York Times report on December 16th, 2017. It was a game changer. It's almost like, well, being a musician, that people sometimes refer to music as being like before Beatles or after Beatles, because the Beatles had such an impact on rock music. So it's almost like the study of the phenomenon is kind of like divided between the before New York Times report and after New York Times report. So what got me involved into this professionally was simply that I kept trying to find ways to explain this to people, and they didn't really want to hear it.
People still dismiss, by the way,
the
report you're talking about in the New York Times, and then they had, it was hit CNN and Fox News and all. People were like interested for like a day or two, and then it just it's like the media, the cycle, just turned over so quickly, like everything else, and people
totally.
If you're not paying attention, then you don't know.
Is that the reports with all those the footage of the ships and stuff?
Yeah.
Go fast.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Gimbal, Go Fast. I'd say
all the forward-looking infrared videos that they had.
Yeah. And in one of my more recent videos on YouTube, I actually cited this New York Times article about the photo of the black hole. Last night, I actually saw Neil deGrasse Tyson speak in Charlotte, and he had a picture on screen of this exact same photo. He says in the near future, we're going to see some re-imaging, some like higher definition, and we'll be able to tell more about the black hole in this picture, which was taken with a lot of different telescopes all around Earth to produce a composite image. Anyways, people can believe this, but they can't believe the New York Times report about glowing auras and black money, the Pentagon secret UFO program. Even though they cite studies and programs that were backed by science, if you research the names of these programs, even though they're backed by scientific information as well, people can believe this New York Times report, but they can't believe the other one. And I think it goes back into just that, people, we can accept this now, But 50 years ago, science would have laughed at this, and they would have said, "No, that's a bunch of BS. There's no way. We don't even have any proof for black holes. What are you talking about?" Until Stephen Hawking came, and really, I mean, they had talked about black holes before Stephen Hawking, but he really like honed in on it, did a lot of research and stuff, and sadly, we were not able to prove. Well, there was no physical proof of Einstein's gravitational waves until after he died. And now there was like no actual like really. I mean, we did have physical proof of black holes, but there was no like photographic evidence of it until after Stephen Hawking has passed away. It's too sad,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
Although he was a skeptic himself, right? He kept flip flopping, but I think he,
mhm.
somebody donated a ton of money too when he died to the SETI program, right?
Something to that effect.
Yeah,
He and I don't remember the guy's name. I wanted to say he was a wealthy man from Russia.
yeah.
Went in together and were trying to discover extraterrestrial life within like 20 years time or so. So, every now and then it's like there's this push. People are reaching out for this, reaching out for that, or you'll see it in I mean, even Neil deGrasse Tyson will not rule out the possibility there's life somewhere else in the universe.
But he does dismiss it. 'Cause, like, I've watched him on like Joe Rogan, where Joe Rogan's asking him
Mhm.
questions, or where he's very candid and he just kind of like moves along the conversation. He almost doesn't want to talk about it. So
Yeah, I I think he doesn't want to say that we've been visited by the extraterrestrials. And I'll tell you why I personally think he doesn't want to do that. But it's almost like people are okay with the belief that there might be life out there, but they're not comfortable with entertaining the belief that we've been visited by those extraterrestrials, that
mhm.
they're coming here to Earth.
But that's
Um,
exactly what we're doing. We're sending stuff out there. If we could go to other places, we'd already be out there like we're going to the
oh,
grocery store, you know?
most definitely. I think that
But
the
then I think
reason.
it is that, so sorry to cut you off, but is that, do you think though, when we look at this, I mean, I fall victim to this too, where we look at it from the point of view of what we know. So like on another planet, and I think I heard you talk about this, and we've talked about this on our
Mhm.
podcast before. On one of your videos, you talk about it could have been a methane planet where they breathe. Like we wouldn't know what the structures of these other beings were because we only know what we know based on what we are. So
Exactly. That's called Earth bias, and I'm getting that from Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm sorry, it's like on my mind because it was just not too
no,
long ago.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I like
Uh,
them. But I
oh, me
just
too.
think
Yeah.
that I sometimes when I hear him say things, it's like, come on, bro, that's you know.
Yeah. He did. I actually wrote it down. Earth bias. He was talking about the Martian asteroid in 1996. That there was this asteroid found, and someone wanted to analyze a pocket of the air from this asteroid, and they very, very carefully, pardon me, were able to, I don't know if it was like a needle or something. They extracted the air, an air bubble, air pocket from inside this asteroid, and they analyzed it, and it was the atmosphere from Mars, like
Mm,
exactly, it's an exact match. They knew it didn't originate from Earth. It didn't look like Earth rocks. So, in analyzing this asteroid, they find a very, very small uh, little microbial, you know, thing,
right,
and it looks like a little worm or like a bacteria or something. I mean, it looks like microbial life.
sure.
So he says that he was on a TV show, and there was like a philosopher and a geologist, and then he himself, and they're being interviewed and asked about this asteroid. So he says first the philosopher was on, and his thing was, how do we know the rocks themselves are not alive? So he said after we got done with that, you know, but I understand what the guy is saying. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some thought involved. I mean,
There's those.
Well, I think
well-
we only know like 5% of all living organisms or some crazy amount.
Well, put that aside. You know, like there's people like Rupert Sheldrake, who's very,
Mhm.
you know, he's got a good perspective on it. And I think he's got the morphic resonance hypothesis too, that there's memory built into stuff too.
Yes.
And there's these also. I don't know if anybody's seen these things. I don't know. I forget what they're called. It starts with an A. They're these rocks that grow because what happens is it rains and the minerals bind together and they form these balls, almost like you ever seen those like balls in Puerto Rico and stuff? Those like cement balls or stone
Yeah.
balls.
So in
Okay,
Costa Rica?
yeah, so I was actually thinking the other day that could probably be what those are. Is just this process that happens. It's in Romania.
Maybe.
Anybody can look it up. It's the way that these minerals react with the water. They grow these balls and they roll around almost like they're alive in a weird way, but
Cool.
they're not. So
That's
I
pretty
mean,
neat.
yeah.
There's I'm not sure about Puerto Rico. I do know in Costa Rica there.
Oh, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's
No, it's
Costa Rica.
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been there and seen them. That's another topic that we could you know develop. There's a lot of information behind that as well. Well, he said that the geologist was up next, and he says definitively not. It's impossible. You know, this thing cannot be alive. It can't. And he says it's because it couldn't survive this and that, and it can't be this, and it's only like a 1/10 of something that's like extremely small, and you know, he just goes on, and then Neil deGrasse Tyson is like, we don't know. It could be. He said, you know, everything you just said is because is what we know on Earth. He says it's an Earth bias, and a lot of people tend to think that way. So, I mean, how else could we not? Yeah, going back to the video about like, you know, saying they breathe methane. Well, breathing itself is something we understand because of Earth.
Right.
And I challenge myself sometimes. There's a little game I play with myself if I'm bored or if I'm driving a long trip or something. I try to imagine like what life would be like for an intelligent civilization, or even, you know, just like regular organic life, like animals and plants on a planet that has nothing to do with Earth, nothing to do with our solar system, nothing to do with our galaxy. What would that be like? And the thing is, every single thing I can think of is all based on Earth. Everything. Do they see different colors? Colors are because of Earth. Would their body organs be different? Body organs are because of Earth. It's like there's literally, I have not found a way yet to describe life anywhere that cannot be related to Earth in some way. And it's a huge puzzle, man. But it's very, very challenging. I don't know if I'll ever be able to answer it one day. I have no other knowledge to base that creativity on, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like well, first of all,
Hey!
we're tailored to be alive on this planet, you know, based on evolution. But then the other thing is it's the same thought process. I don't know if I do this. This is the one I do, is trying to think of nothingness or like being dead. Like, what would that, you know, because you hear some people have near death experiences. There's heaven. It's beautiful. Everything's awesome.
Yeah.
And there's other people that have near death experiences where they say it's pure nothingness or darkness, and then they just come back, you know? So, you know, it's the same kind of a concept, but
yeah, you can only see what you've been, you know, been groomed to see,
true.
you know.
There's nothingness is very good. That I like that. I've tried that as well.
Even nothingness is still something, though. That's the problem. You were literally, I mean, meditation might be the only or the closest way that I've gotten to what it would be.
That's true. I would add to that I believe thinking about nothingness is still something. But I don't know if you're familiar with a book called A Universe from Nothing by Dr. Lawrence M. Krauss. It's
Yeah, I'm not a
It's okay.
he's one of the ones that like I heard him on Rogan, and I usually check out people's books if it's like Homo sapiens, or different, when I hear people on his podcast. But for that one, Rob, just his complete materialistic, reductionist view on things was just very off-putting.
Yeah, it was.
But I know you're talking the part where he was trying about nothing,
Yeah, it was chapter 10. The entire book. Well, okay. First of all, for anyone who wants to read the book, I freaking love
spoilers.
Yeah.
No, he's a smart guy, and I just don't personally. He's like a Richard Dawkins. I don't like Richard Dawkins.
That I think there's a time and a place for that school of thought, but it is by no means the end all be all. And anyways, I love the way the man opens the book. Lawrence M. Krauss opens the book with the biggest line of swagger. I freaking love it. It starts off, "It was a dark and stormy night." And then he goes on with the regular science with the whole 11 chapters. And I was like, dude, that's freaking hysterical. That's awesome. Because if I had worked my way up the scientific ladder and professionality to be able to write my own book like that, I would totally start off with, "It was a dark and stormy night." I found it funny. Anyways. Yeah. Anyways, chapter 10, huge letdown. This is just my personal opinion. It's the book is called "A Universe from Nothing: Why There is Something Rather Than Nothing." I was literally hoping to be able to learn something, and I did. I learned a lot of things. He never answered that question, because according to him in chapter 10, the reason we have something rather than nothing is because nothingness is unstable. No, it's not, because it's nothing. You just personified nothingness, man. Essentially that's what he did. It's and I hate to be like plugging myself here, but back to
that's what science is without philosophy, though. That's why you need both, in my opinion, to get anywhere.
Yeah, totally. In one of my most recent videos, I talked about the personification and the theory of mind and things like that. So you're giving a human quality, or at least an adjective of instability, to nothing. He spent like 9 chapters explaining to us what nothingness is. There's no measurement, there's no weight, there's no temperature, there's no distance, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. So it can't be unstable because there's nothing to be unstable.
Right.
A huge letdown, man. So I read chapter 11 out of obligation because I bought the book.
Threw it right in the garbage.
Yeah, I mean,
if I wanted to listen to somebody that smart that was a reduction, I would listen to Brian Cox. I know Maurice hates him, but
no, I don't hate him. These guys all have little tidbits of information you can.
Yeah, I like. He does a lot of cool. But the thing about Brian Cox is he's willing to at least talk about the other side and debate it. Like I just felt like Lawrence was like he basically called people that believed in religions like idiots and stuff. Like even Joe Rogan, who's an atheist himself, was like, "Whoa, bro," like it's So I just don't like people that are so convinced one way, because we literally don't know shit. We can only perceive 5% of the universe because of dark energy and dark matter, and just to sit there and say, "Oh, we know this because of this," it's like, no. And I understand what science is, and they do test after test, scientific method, and then it gets peer reviewed and all that. So I get it. I'm not saying your work isn't valid. I'm just saying it's merely an observation of the reaches that we can go with our brain and our perceptions. So
that's true. It's really hard to break away from even like a professional scientific bias. I mean, I understand things have to be peer reviewed, but if you're only accepting people into those positions that agree with your viewpoints anyways,
right.
I mean, a true peer review from a paper that's going to research atheism, for example, I mean, would you include like a creationism scientific board or something? I mean, just a question. I don't know that much about.
I mean, I feel like you're open-minded too. I mean, we're pretty open-minded in the sense that I'm willing to accept if they go tomorrow, like we know for sure based on these circumstances, and we won't, because it would take to figure out the whole universe first. But if they were to say that, I would accept it if there was, empirical data.
Well, yeah, of course. This is the I used to be atheist, and it was actually another atheist that brought me back into believing that there's something more out there, that there probably is a God, So this is how it went down. I was talking with an atheist counselor actually because I kept going back and forth on like atheism to agnosticism, and then you read books like the one I grabbed off my shelf is by Raymond Moody, Glimpses of Eternity, and he's the guy that coined the term near-death experience.
Yeah, life after life.
Yeah, exactly. So this book is actually about shared death experiences, and it's where people who are alive actually witness someone going through a near-death experience or crossover, and so there's like empirical evidence, at least from eyewitness testimony, and there's other measurements and things like that as well.
Yeah, we had Dr. Penny Sartori, who's in that field as well, on our podcast, and same thing.
Yeah.
She was at the end of life with a lot of these people and saw some crazy stuff. What they were kind of going, reaching out and hugging people as they're stuff like that. So
that's too cool, man. I love that. Well, the counselor said to me this. She said, a true, honest atheist cannot say there is no God because no one could ever know. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, there's no way to know. I mean, people believe that there is a God because of this or this, but there's no God to say I'm not real. And if there were a God to say I'm not real, then he would be real. And an atheist, if all of a sudden there was an announcement that said, God's going to be on the 6 o'clock news, tune in for an interview, then an atheist would not be atheist anymore, and they would believe that there is a God. And she said, what an atheist says, if an atheist will be honest with themselves, is given all the evidence that I have, I do not believe that there is a God.
Right.
To which my response was, well, given the evidence I have, I do believe.
Right. I respect that, though. I mean, I respect that far more than like them becoming, a lot of those people are just as evangelical about that as religious people, so.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And, I just like you, I respect anyone who holds a belief that they've researched it, they've studied it, and they know for themselves. And man, I have all the respect in the world for that, because that's a person that's not just going to accept like circumstantial evidence or surface level evidence, or they're not going to just do things because that's what they've been told or that's what they've been taught. They've
Facebook
actually
research.
There you go. Yeah, exactly, man. Well, man, yeah. Yeah, it's a good talk we're getting into. I think our dividing point was somewhere around Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah,
yeah, that's okay. I love this. But yeah, he I think his views kind of reflect a lot of things, like from society. It's like people used to not be comfortable with saying that there were other civilizations out there in the universe or even in our solar system. It was like no, and it was basically from people's like religious beliefs or whatever they think that their religious beliefs are supposed to be based on what they've been told. Right. And now people seem to be a little bit more comfortable with saying, yeah, there might be, or oh yeah, there probably is, and no one wants to say that they've come here. This is my opinion. Why? Based on people, like conversations I've had, things I've read, and things I've observed, with a background in psychology and stuff. First, I think the biggest thing is an internal sense of control. Everyone needs to have that. Everyone needs to have a sense of autonomy and security. And with all of the cases and reports of people saying they've been abducted or they've been taken or they've had an implant or they've been scarred or whatever it may be, that scares people. So saying or believing or admitting or allowing that idea to enter your mind as a possibility comes with all of that fear that the person has attached to what that means. So, and then I think about it. This is where I like actually feel some compassion for people. Think about someone who was like abused or something, you know, when they were a kid. You have the same thing. You've got you're powerless. You know, you're being mistreated or hit or scratched or even like verbally. It's an imbalance of control. So it's a bullying situation, essentially. It's a power struggle in which something that you have no control over is controlling you in a bad way, and it's scary. So yeah, I don't I feel like compassion for people in that situation, which is one thing I keep in mind when I'm doing videos is I don't want to scare anyone. And I'm trying real hard to like reduce the fear. Another thing that in my opinion goes in with like the internal sense of control are religious beliefs, because if you really think about just life on earth, no, we don't have the guarantee that we're not going to be invaded. Other countries around the world don't have the guarantee they're not going to be invaded by us. I mean, crap, dude. Like, Bill Clinton, under his administration, I know it wasn't like he himself. They, our intelligence told us that there was like a bomb factory or a weapons factory somewhere, and I believe it was a country in Africa. I don't remember the name of the country. They bombed it. They were making medicines like pharmaceuticals, Tylenol, ibuprofen, and things like that. All of a sudden, was blown up.
Oh, I'm sure that kind of stuff happens all the time.
Oh, it does. It does. Yeah. And
it's a weird thing though, because you have to find because there are people doing fucked up shit that's hurting a lot of people, and then there's it's a weird thing. Even those people that do that to their own people and whatever, those people still have a stable country. So it's like one of those weird things where it's like it's going to be bad either way,
Totally. And that's those types of fears that we already understand. Like we can conceptualize what it's like for a country to invade another. We understand warfare. We understand mistreatment. We understand imbalance of power. And those are our fears. And so when we entertain the idea of another civilization coming to us, we kind of throw those fears onto this idea. And then that's why we feel like we instantly know, oh, if they're more powerful than us, then they are bad, or they're going to do bad things to us. And that's not necessarily the case. Then the opposite, which is what I'm going to focus on in my next video, at least in part, is positivity. Because you think about, if you're more advanced, you're not like violence is like brutal and for a brute mind. And why it's much more enlightening and intelligent to be positive and to be happy and to meditate and want to help other people. And I agree with that. From what I understand, I agree. I do think that it is more intelligent and more beneficial for someone to be enlightened and want to enlighten other people and help other people. However, we have no freaking clue.
Right.
What, again, earth bias. All of those things are earth bias. Positive and negative, war and peace are all concepts I understand because of my life on earth.
So I want to jump into something here because right to this point, everything we've been talking about is physical. And personally, based on everything I've researched, I've watched every documentary. There's dumber ones than other ones, but I've definitely seen a lot of stuff, and just from doing this podcast and reading books, and my own personal experiences. When I was younger, I did some psychedelics, and now I meditate, but I've definitely touched into some sort of metaphysical thing that, it could be endogenous chemicals in my brain, swirling around, creating this stuff or whatever. I'm open to that idea, but I do think that when it comes to like extraterrestrials and stuff, why, if you're going to travel somewhere, why take an actual ship there? Like, why not, if you could communicate without talking, why wouldn't you be able to do that over long distances via, I assume we still are under the guise that we don't know quantum entanglement, like what it is exactly. So why couldn't you use that in theory to communicate with some other civilization or beings or whatever? So just that being said, do you think that there's something to the whole consciousness thing in the way that it interacts with this stuff, or do you think that it's too early to tell? We haven't done enough research. What's your opinion on that?
Personally, yeah, I think you're right on the money. That yeah, there is a connection to consciousness. There was a I don't remember the man's name. He was from India, and he had his documentary or speech or whatever that he gave was called The Quantum Activist. And essentially he was saying that the solution to the unifying theory of everything that we so like intently desire to figure out is that it's not that matter births consciousness, but rather that consciousness births matter.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in, man, it could be as far back as 2010, or it could be like 2011, 2012. Sometime in that time frame is when I saw that documentary on Netflix. And I thought about that a lot. Then you've also got, so I'm going to throw out some points and see if we can connect the dots here. Here, just like some things I've noticed here.
Okay.
Hal Putoff, super cool guy. I had the privilege of meeting him briefly one time. He's a really nice guy. I like. He's done a lot of research with remote viewing.
He was just in that documentary, Third Eye Spies, that just came out.
Oh, awesome, cool.
With Russell Targ and all those guys.
That's correct. There's Russell Targ. Russell Targ's an older guy, right?
Yeah, I mean they're both. I mean, Hal Putoff's pretty old. They were at the Stanford Research Institute at the same time in the 70s. So I think they're probably 70s or.
Is Russell Targ the guy that came out with the app called ESP Trainer?
Yeah, actually, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. That's a fun app.
I've never used it, but I remember.
Give it a plug, baby.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. ESP Trainer. Yeah. It's they say on the app it says if you consistently score a certain number, repetitively, to contact the app developer, which I think is pretty cool. Like, wow.
You're gonna get swooped up.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome.
They're grooming people for this.
It's like an old school
government facility.
It's like an old school. They throw a hood over your head and throw you in a van.
Wow!
And go get the fuck out of here. And grab the Cheetos.
Crazy, man.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's so there's that. The quantum activist with like essentially basically he's saying like the God is consciousness, and from the mind of God, all this matter births up. So there's that with the consciousness being like the reason there's life in the universe. Then with Hal's research, you're using your thought, or maybe I've described it like maybe your intuition. We all have a certain degree of intuition. Some people are more intuitive than others. Maybe that's an explanation of how people can do like remote viewing or telepathic, communication.
That's probably one of my better ones, right? Because I guess I'll be watching a show or a movie with my wife. I'll guess the ending before. Some of them are stupid and easy to guess, but then some of them are like I've done it with Black Mirror, actually, with Maurice. I was sitting there when he's like, guess this one, and I guess he's like, that's pretty. It was within like a couple details off,
That's neat. That's good, man. That's really good. There's that, and a big one for me was Tom DeLonge on Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, when he was talking about there were 2 points in the interview. One was around like does God wear Birkenstocks or something to that effect. There was this issue about that. They were talking about the nature of God, and then Tom's background, his mom being very involved in Protestant Christianity. and then him touring with Blink and kind of breaking away, and then kind of
Yeah, I
coming
see the
back to it
books over
later.
your shoulder. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got tons of books, man.
Have you read is God's Man of War up there?
Yeah, volume 1.
That's
Yeah,
I mean, I like his the fiction. Look,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie. I read the books. I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
people out there that don't like his stuff. I thought
Mhm.
the fiction was good, and I thought the nonfiction was good, but it was just kind of a regurgitation of a lot of stuff that we already kind of knew. You know.
Yeah, I think so. I also think that
Except for this Greek. What's your take on
Which
the Greek uh
with the
this Greek,
Roswell.
no, just the Greek gods thing, and
Oh,
he talks about in the interviews, he's alluded to it in a couple times, and
mhm.
something about, you know, maybe Atlantis mixed with some break off civilization that's been watching us for a long time or something along those lines, but he alluded to like the Greek gods or something.
um, you know, if they're connecting the dots in the right way, it makes perfect sense. But I just, I mean, I really, I have regarding the ancient past, it's up for interpretation. Anyone that does their research and wants to prove something here or there, um, pretty much has free reign to do it, as long as you've got enough supporting evidence. So I think, in my personal opinion, you know, after having read the books and knowing a lot about ancient cultures, religious beliefs, civilizations, and things like that from my own personal studies and college studies as well, I think that their research is sound. That the evidence they bring, sorry,
No, no worries.
the evidence they bring to the table of discussion is sound and it's credible. Their writing is sound. It's all very believable. The only thing I would like to see more of is how they traced the path of human migration through a virus, or the way viruses like evolve. It wasn't necessarily like how would like the Genographic Project, which was a collaboration between National Geographic and IBM, if I remember correctly. They
Mhm.
were looking for mutations on the X and Y chromosomes. Started with the Y chromosome, I believe, and they traced human migration back. You know, basically everyone goes back to Africa at some point, but they were tracing a different path through the mutations or the evolution of viruses, or a certain virus or a group of viruses. The details escape me, but it went back to an area um, between Indonesia and the Philippines. Oh, it's the Jovian Sea, the Javan Sea. It starts with a
Yeah,
J, I believe.
Java.
Maybe it's the Java
Well, there was like
Sea.
Java Man was like one of the um our
Mhm.
ancestors that they found.
I wish I don't have. It's a lot of information to memorize. I wish I just knew it off the top of my head. I'm familiar with it. I just don't remember the exact
And
names.
that's where they found the little hominid,
Yeah,
what's it, Homo
the
floresiensis.
the hot yeah. You're exactly right. That was in Indonesia, actually.
Yeah.
This is an area that's underwater now, but
Oh, okay.
basically they're saying that that's where Atlantis was.
Like Sundaland area, the Sundaland shelf.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, that connected
Mhm.
the tip of the bottom of Indonesia kind of to
Mhm.
where Australia was at a certain point, but there was still like some
yeah, land
a
bridge, right?
canal in between.
Mhm.
You still would have had to do, yeah, but it was a land bridge in the sense that it would have been an easy boat ride or something
Yeah.
along those lines.
A canoe
And,
away.
Yeah.
and honestly, man, like you know, there are certain things we can understand about the ancient past, but and then there are things that totally baffle us. I mean, how many times has science hypothesized something and they're partially right, but not completely right?
Right.
Friends. And I don't think that scientists are embarrassed about that. I mean, that shouldn't be seen as a failure in any respect. If in the name of science we make an educated guess or a hypothesis and we're wrong, so be it. Pick up and keep learning. So it's very possible that there was some type of civilization there. If
Yeah.
you know, it's definitely a possibility. I would just like to see more research on that, not just one.
Well, I think you don't see it though
Mhm.
because it's such a considered a fringe thing that
Well,
whoever's
yeah,
giving the grants or these universities aren't gonna fund somebody to go do that stuff. And actually today, right now, you're more likely to get a grant for psychedelic research than you are ancient civilization to possibly alter the timeline. Like I'm reading
true.
Graham Hancock's America Before right now.
Mhm.
And he makes a pretty compelling case against the Clovis first model in America, which was what we knew as the first people in America,
Yeah.
in the New Mexico area. So, yeah, to be honest with you, I think that you're right. I think it's one of those things where we just don't know enough and we're basing,
Mhm.
like when I think about history, even though I've done all the research I've done to know that there's a lot of holes and a lot of potentially different timelines happening, I still think of it as like how I learned it in school, because
Mhm.
maybe it's from learning it in that impressionable age, but you still kind of look at it this like, I think John Anthony West used to call it the church of progression, that, you know, this scientific model is literally under the assumption that everything's consistently gotten better, which I'm sure it has
Right.
in some ways, but maybe not in other ways. So,
Well, yeah, totally. It's hard to measure progress in very fine details. You have to back up and look at the entire picture of anything. I mean, America, are we better off than we were, 200 years ago? Of course,
yes.
but not in every single way. But
Right.
overall, yeah, overall, I think we are.
Yeah. I think
That,
we've lost our spiritual. You don't even have to be religious, but I think you should have some sort of spirituality, whether it's just to be
mhm,
alive or whatever the case may be. I mean, we're living, breathing magic. And if
mhm.
there's no faith or hope in some sort of other greater thing, then you're just living like a drone, basically.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. Which is why we have like atheist churches popping up. I mean, like literally, like they're churches, but they're
Yeah.
they're atheists, so they're doing all the things a typical church would want to do, like community service or raising money for a cause or something like that, but without the belief in God. It's just like an inward, like goodwill towards
Right.
yeah,
So yeah. So back to Tom DeLonge though, because I like
sure,
this
hmm
topic
yeah,
because
yeah,
I think it's one of those very, you got 50% of the people that want to believe or love it, and then you got 50% of the people. Oh, I've been doing this a long time. I don't believe in this. This is stupid. It's just another, book deal or movie deal or
yeah,
whatever. But the fact that he came out and said that that's what he's trying to do, but he's also trying to prove things, I think is a
hmm
little bit different. Like he came out and said, yeah, we're making movies. Yeah, we're writing books. Yeah, we're doing this stuff, but we're also trying to prove these things in the
hmm
process. So I like that aspect about it. It's pretty,
I do too.
there's a
Has
lot of stuff
anything
he,
new come out or any new
uh,
info?
Um,
well, there's
uh,
a show coming out on, he's got a show
yeah,
coming on
there's
the History Channel called, is it
mhm,
Undisclosed or something? And that starts in
unidentified. Yeah, so
Unidentified. That
May
starts in
30th.
May.
May
Yeah.
31st, unidentified. That's a huge celebration for a lot of people that are just, you know, involved in the movement or agenda. I don't really know what you would really call it. I mean, anyone can. It's almost like being a fan of a certain football team.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed like your team wins the Super Bowl and everyone says we won.
Right.
We won, or man, we've had a tough season. We've had a tough season. I don't remember you being on the payroll for the Cleveland
Right.
Browns, sir. But that's just kind of that's what we do. We affiliate with it. So I see To the Stars Academy being, or To the Stars in general is kind of the same thing. Anyone can kind of show their loyalty or respect, or buy a T-shirt, stickers,
Well,
Angel
you can
Sonoras.
invest in the company, can't you?
Yeah,
I
you
don't know.
can.
Is it still open? Because I know that they had it like a window, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if they officially closed that off or not. It's the concept is like crowd share funding, like
Oh,
crowdfunding,
okay.
crowd share funding. Stephen Greer is doing the exact same thing right now. He's got sorry, he has a movie. I almost said video. He's got a video, brand new concept, a
The new
video.
age of shit, man.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this video. Whoa, yeah, he's got a video, movie coming out. And he's doing some crowd share funding now. So you can do a certain level and buy some tickets to the show and be a
Yeah,
part
it's
of
gonna
it.
be interesting. I want to see what he
Yeah.
has
Oh yeah,
done
I'm
since
interested too.
that little bean was found out to
Serious?
just be a human that had tons
Oh
of
yeah,
different deformities and stuff.
yeah.
Are you
I
not
love
convinced? I mean, there was a lot of people that weren't convinced by it. Like everybody that I saw in the comments was like bullshit after they came out and said it was a human baby or a fetus that had all these like genetic defects and stuff.
that. You know, I'm going to
That thing
say,
was creepy looking though. It looked like a evil Tinkerbell.
oh my gosh, that's great. I love it. It's the ETB. It's the evil Tinkerbell.
Here it is. Here's Evil Tink.
There, yeah. It's the,
That thing will haunt your dreams, man. It's a fully developed human.
Run. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I'm going to militant atheist it and say that given all the evidence I'm not going to say given the evidence I have, I don't believe it. I'm going to say that I honestly I don't know. I respect Dr. Greer and he is showing his evidence, but I don't have enough evidence contrary to say no. The only thing I could say is like
He believes it's an alien, right?
yeah, that's the only thing I could say. The only argument I would have or anyone would have is to say, that's total BS. I don't believe you. Or to say, oh yeah, an alien, but I'm getting so tired of that, of people saying things like that, like.
Would we know though? Like, I mean, genetically, obviously we know what we are, but let's say something similar. Like, how would we know that it's not? Like that would be my argument.
If it's similar, but not the same, we would know that. Or let's say, for example, if we were going into the cells, or like perfect example, man, like if we were able to find the DNA,
right?
It was not human DNA, but this thing looks like a human. It's got arms and legs and a head.
But how would that work too? So like we know DNA is being us. Like that's what we are. So what's DNA that's not us? Do you know what I'm saying? Like
I have no idea. I mean, it's almost like, okay, Christmas morning, you expect to go down and see the Christmas tree looking a certain way and the presents are under the tree. But if you walk downstairs on Christmas morning and the tree is coming to the side of the wall and the presents are dangling from the tree from like ropes or something, you're like, that looks like Christmas, but it's not.
Right.
That's essentially what we'd be looking for. I don't know enough about the molecular structure of deoxyribose nucleic acid. Right. Other than like the double helix, and I mean, I knew it at one point. I didn't commit it to memory, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's essentially what it would be. I mean, there are claims that there were bodies found from crash sites,
right?
Of extraterrestrials, whether they were like genetic clones or if they were actually like autonomous, like
biological androids or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's with like the genetic clone. I think that's what Philip Corso said. Lieutenant Colonel Corso said they were like genetic clones.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot because it's like, why would you send, a physical being when you can send a robot that can relay everything,
Going back to your spiritual connection, though, think about this. Based on the premise that everything is spiritual and physical, and that let's just for purposes of what I'm about to explain, let's just believe that human beings occupy a very unique space between the physical and spiritual world, or realms. Even the spiritual realm has physicality, and the way that we talk about it and define it, we talk about like a soul. You die, and your spirit goes. Well, what is the spirit? How can you see or perceive a ghost? It's because there are physical interactions. We know for a fact there are colors the human eye cannot see. There are sounds the human ear cannot hear. We have other instruments or devices to allow us to observe more like intently or with more detail and accuracy So even the spiritual is also physical. Therefore, let's say that there is a spirit who can interact in the physical realm. I know there are reports. People say that there are ghosts in a haunted place or something that will knock something off a wall, or they'll pull somebody's hair, or interact somehow in a physical way, bumping up against the walls, or whatever they're doing. I'm just based off reports. If those reports are true, then that means that the spirit can interact physically. Could the spirit interact enough to actually construct themselves a physical body in which they could inhabit? And then that goes into like the movie Avatar. What I just discussed sounds kind of creepy and scary, but then everyone sees the movie Avatar and they're mind blown, inspired to go to make that decision, to major in that study in college. They're inspired to, ask the girl out or whatever it is. They see this movie and they're like inspired for some reason, but that's the same. The scientific side of it's exactly the same. I'm throwing my consciousness into some type to interacting into a physical world. So that could also be, hey, what are we doing with robots, the rovers on Mars? Our scientists are, behind cameras and with instruments operating and moving this thing like a video game, exploring Mars through cameras. Maybe that's what these things are. Maybe these are the rovers. And until lately, like our terminology for describing these reports and things that we hear, and again, that this is not associated with To the Stars, it's not associated with Neil deGrasse Tyson or anything. These are just things I've read and heard over the years, and I'm just offering an interpretation. So, we're now saying that they may be AI, artificial intelligence. Until Siri and Alexa with the Amazon Echo, people didn't really talk about AI like they do now. It's a household name, like literally, no pun intended. Hold on one second. Alexa, what is artificial intelligence?
The known artificial intelligence is usually defined as the capacity of a computer to perform operations analogous to learning and decision-making in humans.
And I'm going to kill you.
Would you like to know the answer?
No, thanks. Okay. Anyways, yeah, I didn't know she was going to like ramble on. Ramble on as long as me, But yeah, essentially that it's like the way we describe things changes over time. People used to say that the UFOs, which people want to get away from the term UFO as well, that they used to come from Mars. They were Martians, and then they came from another planet, and now they come from like another realm or another dimension, and now they come from another universe or another reality. And it's like the way we describe it continues to change because we continue to change, but the reports are still the same. Like this week, the headlines have been like the Navy has been redoing its guidelines for how pilots can report interactions with unidentified aerial phenomenon because they're trying to reduce the stigma. If there really is an unidentified aircraft out there, yeah, we need to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me, going back to the spiritual thing again, it reminds me like there are times in which security cameras will pick up what we would call or define or term like a ghost, knocking over chairs in a restaurant or doing this or that or turning the lights off and on or making a bunch of sounds. So if we're only going to go into physical evidence, only the physical evidence, and we look at that camera footage says someone is breaking into the restaurant at night. Someone's breaking into whatever establishment at night. That's a security risk. It could be a health insurance liability for the business. Yet the police are never called. No one investigates. No one tightens security measures or batten down the hatches or puts extra alarms. No one does anything.
Right.
But then they don't want to talk about it either. And that's what's going on with the unidentified aerial phenomenon. It's like, yeah, look, you've got something that, appears in the sky and flying around and interacting and doing whatever. I mean, it's an actual object. Radar picks it up 80,000 feet above, the sea level. This thing drops abruptly, like 10,000 miles an hour straight down, hovers 50 feet above the ocean waters until our F-16 fighter jets come to chase it, and it interacts, and like the jets get closer and it's up, and then does, and it's, and you don't want to talk about that. You don't want to report that. And like instantly, instead of looking at the actual physical evidence, which is like the radar returns, electro-optical data, I mean, I could rattle off a list of all.
Maybe they did report it. The government already knew about it,
Well, there were reports. They weren't taken seriously as a thing. I mean, instead of looking at the actual physical evidence and trying to figure it out logically, it's like it gets laughed at, and no one wants to take it seriously. And then people who are laughing at it, like, well, what do you think it is? And they'll say, well, it's probably China or Russia. So then you're comfortable with them invading our airspace. You're essentially, calling them our enemy and saying that they're invading our airspace and intimidating our pilots, but we should laugh about it and not investigate. So it's like people contradict themselves sometimes. At any rate, I feel like I'm rambling again.
No, you're good.
So the bottom line is we better get fucking worried about something here.
Well, I mean, but why worry? My take on this, it might not even be, we might be the evil ones. We're the ones blowing ourselves up.
I think we are the evil ones.
So it's like, why, like if anything, they might be pissed. Yeah, they might take it out on us for being such idiots and not, spreading the true message, which would be like knowledge and love and enlightenment, like that kind of stuff.
And where I'm coming from, like with my work, is like right in the middle. Is it bad? Maybe. Is it good? Maybe. We honestly don't know until we actually investigate and figure it out. We don't know. But I want to know. I mean, if this is like some type, okay, we've got fear and we've got love, essentially, like the very basic human emotions here. On one side, we're afraid. On the other side, it's like peace, love, and prosperity. All feels good. What if it's something? What if it is a concept to remove ourselves completely from Earth bias? Something that's not fear or love, and it's something that's not even in the middle. It's a thought process, or it's a feeling that we totally don't know. I was doing some yard work and I found all these earthworms. They can't see me. I can see them. We have 5 senses. So is there a species or a civilization or a being or something out there that can perceive me, but I can't perceive it?
Right.
And,
well, I mean, it could probably perceive your vibrations, because I assume that's how they detect things. Or
the earthworm, but is there like another type of being out there that can see me, or can perceive me in a way that I have no idea what the sense is? If anyone says no, well, flies can see colors that I can't see. Which of those colors am I radiating or resonating? Dogs can hear sounds I can't. What types of sounds? What does my voice sound like to a dog that can hear things that I can't? Is there something that about me that I or any other human being I can't perceive? Again, going back to the spiritual side, that would be God or angels or spirits or whatever you want to describe that as. That would be the type of being that can perceive us and we can't perceive it.
Well, even imagining, like even trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes or kind of like it's not even to try and do it. You're not doing it. Like you can't get outside your own consciousness. So like
it's difficult.
When you try and like think of it, like that's why people be like, get in fights about like, oh, oh, you made a face or you did, like, you don't exactly know what, they're thinking, or even if they say something, did they say it with a certain tone? And it was that what there was a thought process behind it. So it's like, um, in
Theory of
that,
mind.
yeah, in that regard, we're all completely different. We're all different species
Mhm.
in a way.
That is true. It's and again, not to plug myself here, but the theory of mind, as in I opened my most recent series with, that's exactly what you're saying is you try to think what someone else is thinking, or like someone makes a face and you think like, oh, he's doing that because of this or that.
Right.
But if you actually ask him, he's not. It could be something totally unrelated.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's really all we can do at this point is like at our level is to imagine, to investigate, to uh, reach out to each other and to other people. I was fortunate to have the interview with Steve Justice from To the Stars. Um, I've got some other
Is that
things.
on your YouTube channel?
I a little bit. I put the focus was the article, and I there were I wrote my original draft. Like I wasn't exactly sure what direction I was going to go with it at that time. And in the midst of me doing this article, that's when Ars Technica came out with the fake news. Well, they came out with their mischaracterized representation saying that To the Stars Academy was in debt $37.5 million, which is not true. Deficit and debt are different. Quick math. If let's say I take $100 of my own money and invest it into a business, and that I plan to profit, $25, and I
Right.
don't. Whatever I don't make over that line, that's going to be my deficit. It doesn't mean I owe anybody anything. I might owe it to myself.
Right.
It
Right.
basically means that like I didn't, I overestimated what I needed to keep my business in operation or whatever my plans were.
Mhm.
So that's just a small example. I can't really speak on behalf of To the Stars. At any rate, that came out. um, Thankfully, it was followed up and people proved it fake quickly. But there are still people that think it's true. And then the Strange Times series also got approved by TBS, and that came out during the development of the article as well. And that was a great thing to include there. So I had to do it as a report. My very first draft, looking back, sounds more like an essay, and you can totally tell that I'm biased. But again, how I got involved in all of this is I was trying to find ways to communicate these things to other people in ways that they weren't going to become afraid or laugh at me. Michio Kaku calls it the giggle factor. When you mention aliens and stuff, people laugh.
Right.
So it was, after ATIP, everything just got so much more serious. But I really couldn't find anybody else on board that wanted to be serious about it. So I kept, talking, reaching, and asking questions, and that led me to the Stars Academy. And thankfully, it all worked out. I'm extremely grateful for that. But there were things in my original draft that that were really good. Like I shared it with To the Stars, so they knew that those were things I was planning on including. But
Mhm.
just due to the fact that the Mensa Bulletin, number one, is all volunteer. Number two, it's not for profit. Number three, we have a limited amount of space. I had to cut a lot of stuff out. The main thing, like the big kicker for me, the thing I focused on that I wanted to get communicated was the very last question I asked Mr. Steve Justice, and that was, basically, if all the obstacles of To the Stars Academy, if all the obstacles were gone and every goal of To the Stars Academy could be like instantly achieved, how would our world be better? And his answer, like, totally blew me away. It was literally as if someone opened a window, allowed me to look into the actual future, and then the window was closed. And I was like, dang,
Hmm.
the world needs to know this, man. That is so freaking awesome. So this is what he said. There were two things. He said that we're never going to get rid of like natural disasters and things like that, but we can change how we respond to a natural disaster. So on the cover of let's see, what was it, USA Today actually, April 25th, 2019, you've got disaster relief stuck in gridlock, and this is talking about Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico feud as victims try to recover. Victims of Hurricane Maria, like well over a year later, are still trying to get over this natural disaster. So this is, if for anyone who's not seen the video, this is what Steve said basically is this technology that we're developing, like we have an insight into the physics of how this technology works, right? And if all the obstacles are gone and every single goal could instantly be accomplished, what would we be doing with this technology? We could deliver supplies to disaster relief like South Florida with Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Florence, it hit the Carolinas, Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, and we could deliver the supplies those people need instantly right where they're needed, versus driving around the country to donation centers, loading all the supplies and stuff onto a truck, driving the truck to an airport, offloading the truck from the cargo onto an airplane and flying it down to the location, unloading the cargo from the airplane onto a truck, and then driving the truck down to the location. And then on the way, you've got down trees and power lines and flooded roads, and the roads are closed and you can't get there. So it's like, a week and a half, 2 weeks or so until these people get clean drinking water, food, blankets, portable housing, shelter, and whatever they may need, versus instantly right where they're needed. So like I'm just using my own imagination, thinking of like a helicopter landing pad, but instead of like for a helicopter, it's for like this super advanced vehicle to land on. So I could hear like much like a train that's going to cross, you hear the sound ding 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 ding, and everyone's like, okay, stop, everybody get back, the bar is coming close down. But then all of a sudden now maybe there's like a because nothingness is unstable, there's some quantum fluctuation here, thanks to Lawrence and Krauss, and then boom, and there's your machine, right, with all these supplies on it. And he also said this. He said that in the medical community, you have something called the golden hour, when someone is in a near fatal situation, whether it be like a car accident or a heart attack or a stroke or something. Doctors have about 1 hour to save your life. And half of the golden hour is getting the person to the hospital because of ambulance and car traffic. So they could get the patient to the hospital so much faster that way. And I realize that if an accident happens within a mile or less from a hospital, the odds are pretty good. And the odds of the ambulance getting to the patient soon are good. But that's still not always the case. In very rare circumstances, an ambulance could be sideswiped by a car. A drunk driver or someone not paying attention, or someone texting and driving on their phone, could hit the ambulance. And we don't know. There's also helicopter transportation. That's good too. Even so, if it's a very, very bad situation, I could envision, if we can transport like all these supplies, we could probably transport people. What if we had a transportable operating room, like an OR, a TOR, a transportable operating room, and then wherever the accident is, like if you literally like can't move the car accident victim, but I just using my imagination.
This guy's head's about to explode.
Yeah, like I could, or whatever it may be. You say I could envision someone saying, "If only we could just operate on him right here. If only we could just, if we could just bring an operating room right here, then we could move her from the car or something." Well, with this technology, that might be possible. I don't know.
It's crazy.
Yeah, but see, and then he's telling me this, and my mind's just I'm racing, man. Like, if you can deliver supplies, you can deliver mail. If you could deliver mail, you can deliver Amazon packages. Ta-da!
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they've already been talking about drones for a while, right?
Yeah, and this would be faster than this could be used in conjunction with the drones, and you could do airplane flights, man. I mean,
Right.
do you want to fly business class, or do you want to just get there quick, like in a second? Why would you want to fly like an 8-hour business class flight when you can just, step into a type of aircraft, wait 15 seconds for the door to open up again, and then you're in your destination, or 1 second. I mean, I don't people say like instantly. That's ridiculous. Well, if I send you a text message and sometimes it arrives instantly, you're like, wow, man, that was fast. It like instantly
Right.
arrived. Well, I mean, yeah, there's a fractional amount of time you can measure. It's not exactly instant, but it looks like it's instant, So I could see it being like that. But he answered this question for me, man. I was like, I mean, do you know how much that would improve our environment?
Yeah.
I mean, also from USA Today this week, you've got, it looks like I subscribe to USA Today. I actually don't. I just found these look interesting to me.
Yeah.
Humans pour 37 gigatons of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere annually. This is life after climate change. That was on Earth Day. Coincidentally, on Earth Day, I made an announcement on my website, which is chillerforrealer.com, that I'm about to start doing a t-shirt fundraiser, and 90% of all the funds are going to go to disaster relief in Puerto Rico, in the Carolinas from Hurricane Florence, which is there's still a little recovery going on, and also South Florida from Hurricane Michael. Now, here's the coincidence. Tom DeLonge said there's no coincidence in the phenomenon. I don't know. 1 year before the interview with Steve, Hurricane Maria destroyed Puerto Rico. 1 month before the interview with Steve, Hurricane Florence hit the Carolinas. And that's actually one reason we had to postpone the interview, was because I live in the area of the Carolinas, and I wasn't guaranteed internet or phone, So we had to skip that. And that was a month out. And then 1 week before the interview with Steve is when Hurricane Michael hit South Florida. So we got 1 year, 1 month, 1 week. And then we talk about disaster relief. I also mentioned this in the part 4 of Unafraid to Investigate the Unexplained. 12 days after the interview with Steve, talking about the golden hour, there was a school shooting near where I live. And the young man involved, from the information that I have, had he arrived to the hospital sooner, he probably still would be with us. I'm not blaming the ambulance.
Sure.
I'm not blaming the medical community. I'm confident they did everything in their power that they could. However, if he could have arrived instantly, he'd still be with us.
Yeah.
And
that goes for all this stuff too. People being able to revive people. Like even however many years ago when they didn't have the paddles to shock people and resuscitate them. People, not now you have people have heart attacks, and you can, do some things that you weren't able to do before, and people are having these experiences,
True. Yeah. I have found that people so often don't want to believe in the newest science for whatever reason it might be, especially if it's something they believe is like morally wrong, like the stem cell research. Didn't want to believe that. People, for whatever reason, in like 1990, didn't want to believe asbestos caused cancer for whatever
Right.
it was. People are now not wanting to, whatever about vaccines, I don't know. It's that people don't want to believe science until they're, at a life and death situation in a hospital, or until a loved one has had a heart attack or a stroke.
Right.
And people don't want to recognize that religion has any role in society until a loved one passes away, or they want to get married, or they're about to have a baby. It's like you know, what are we going to do with all these things that we think about as human beings? I mean, it's like we contradict ourselves all the time.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, on that note, let's wrap it up here. We're gonna have you back. I think we should do part 2 of this because there's just so much other stuff to get to.
Definitely, there's a
Um,
lot. Yeah,
There, like, we could literally sit here and talk for hours. All this stuff's
yeah,
fascinating, and I've definitely been down this rabbit hole for a little while now, and I'm sure you have too.
yeah.
But why don't you, plug your stuff real quick before we get out of here?
Oh yeah, definitely. You can find me on YouTube at Tiller for Realer. That's TILLER, the number 4, and RILLER. It's a nickname a friend gave me in high school. It's like, I'm a Tiller for Realer. Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah.
So you got TillerForRealer.com too.
yeah. So on my website, you can follow. I'm on Twitter, commenting about different things. But yeah, I'm trying to really like where I'm going with all of this is drawing more attention to helping the environment, saving the people and the planet.
Right.
Saving the planet and its people is my big goal, and simultaneously reducing the stigma and the fear among society, so that we can approach whatever unidentified aerial phenomenon means, like whatever that means for anyone listening. Like, I hope that we can
Right.
approach it logically, rationally, and together. Honestly, just figure this thing out. If all these things flying around in the sky, if they're a new species of pig, okay, man, flying pigs, there we go. But at least we know. If that's
Right.
what it is, so be it. I just want to know. That's it. I want to know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a super fun conversation. Like I said, let's get you
Mhm.
back on here
Sure.
sometime in the next couple of weeks, and we'll do part 2 of this because I think there's a lot of other stuff I wanted to hit on too.
Oh
Definitely.
yeah.
But awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll
Thanks for
see you
having me.
soon. Yeah, no
Yeah,
Nice
problem.
meeting ya.
great. Yeah. All right. Awesome, man. Thanks, guys.
Have
See
a
you.
good one, brother.